I got married at 23. Yeah, I know. You can already hear the boss music starting. But at that time, I thought I had everything figured out. I had a job, a small apartment, and a girl who laughed at my stupid jokes. Her name was Alina. And if you asked me back then, I would have said, this is it. This is the one. Now if you ask me, I'll say, this was a well-organized emotional scam. It all started in the most cliché way possible. A coffee shop. Rain outside. I walk in like the main character. Trip over absolutely nothing, and almost take down a chair. Smooth. She was sitting by the window. Laptop open. Headphones on. Looking like she had her life together. Unlike me, who just fought a chair and lost. I order coffee. I turn around. And boom, she bumps into me and spills her drink all over my shirt. Perfect. We both freeze. She slowly takes off her headphones and says, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." And I, standing there like a soaked NPC, say, "Well, at least now I smell expensive." She laughs. And that laugh? That was it. That was the moment my life said, "Alright bro, buckle up." We started talking. 1 hour turned into 3. 3 turned into 5. At some point, the barista looked at us like, either order something else or get married already. Spoiler. We did. The first few months? Perfect. Like suspiciously perfect. She would text me good morning every day. Send voice messages. Even laugh at jokes that didn't deserve laughter. I remember thinking, wow, how did I get so lucky? Answer. I didn't. Then one day she said, "I want you to meet my friends." Now listen carefully. This is where every horror story begins. Not with ghosts. Not with demons. But with, "I want you to meet my friends." We met at a bar. Dim lights. Loud music. Expensive drinks that taste like regret. And there they were. The council. 3 girls sitting like they were about to decide my fate. Alina walks in holding my hand like she's presenting evidence. "Guys, this is him." They look at me. Up. Down. Up again. One of them smiles. Not a nice smile. More like, "I already don't like you, but I'm gathering data." Let me introduce them. First, Karina. She had that energy like she just broke up with someone, every day. She looked at me and said, "So what do you do?" I told her. She nodded like she was reviewing my resume for a job I didn't apply for. Second, Lyra. Quiet. Observant. Dangerous. She didn't say much. But when she did, it felt like a test. She asked, "Do you believe people can stay loyal forever?" Bro. We just met. Why are we speedrunning philosophical trauma? I said. Yeah. I think so. She smiled. That was not a good sign. And third, oh boy. Dasha. The leader. You know how every group has that one person who talks the most and thinks the loudest? Yeah. That one. She looked at Alina and said, loud enough for me to hear. "He's cute, but he looks too calm." Too calm? What do you want me to do? Backflip? The whole evening felt like an interview. They asked questions like, "What are your intentions? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you believe in personal freedom and relationships?" I'm like, "Guys, I just came here for a drink." After that night, I told Alina, "Your friends are intense." She laughed. "They're just protective." Protective? From what? Happiness? Time passed. And slowly, things started changing. At first, it was small. She started mentioning them more. Dasha said this. Karina thinks that. Lyra believes. At some point I felt like I wasn't dating Alina anymore. I was dating a group project. Then came the first girls' night. She said, "Don't wait for me, I'll be late." Cool. No problem. I ordered food. Watched a movie. Relaxed. She came home at 2 a.m. A little drunk. A little different. She hugged me and said, "You're too good." I laughed. Is that a problem? She looked at me for a second and said, "Maybe." I should have seen it right there. But when you're in love, your brain becomes decorative. More nights out. More opinions from her friends. More little comments. You don't go out enough. You're too predictable. You're like, safe. Safe. Apparently, being stable is now a personality flaw. One evening we were sitting at home. Quiet. Normal. And out of nowhere she says, "Do you ever feel like you're missing out?" I said. "On what? Sleep?" She didn't laugh. That's when I knew. Something was loading. A few days later, she goes out again. Just girls. Of course. Always just girls. At around midnight, I text her. "How's it going?" No reply. 1 a.m. Nothing. 2 a.m. Still nothing. Now I'm not the jealous type. But I am the "this feels weird" type. She comes home at 3:30. No apology. No explanation. Just walks in, drops her bag, and says, "I'm tired." I look at her. And for the first time, I don't recognize her. Next morning, I try to talk. "Hey, is everything okay?" She sighs. "I don't know." That answer? That I don't know? That's worse than any truth. Then she says, "I feel like I rushed into this." Bro. We are married. This is not a free trial. I try to stay calm. We can figure it out. She nods. But her eyes? Her eyes were somewhere else. That same evening, she gets a message. Her phone lights up. I wasn't even trying to look. But I saw the name. Unknown. With a Jim emoji. Jim? Since when does she have Jim contacts? She notices me looking. Immediately flips the phone. Too fast. Too obvious. I say nothing. But inside my head? Oh, there's a whole investigation starting. Later that night, she goes to the bathroom. Leaves her phone on the table. Face down. Of course. I sit there. Looking at it. Like it's a bomb. I tell myself. Don't touch it. Respect privacy. Be a good husband. Then it buzzes. Once. Twice. 3 times. And finally, I turn it over. And that's when everything went wrong. I just sat there looking at her phone on the table. She stood in front of me, waiting for my reaction like she already knew what I saw. "You looked," she said quietly. I didn't even deny it. "Yeah," I said. I looked. Silence. That kind of silence where you can literally feel something changing between two people. I finally asked, "Who is writing to you like this?" She hesitated. Then she said something that made it worse instead of better. "It's not just one person." That was the first time I felt uncomfortable in my own apartment. I leaned back and laughed a little, because honestly my brain couldn't process it normally. "So what, it's like a group chat now? Or what is this?" She didn't laugh. That was the problem. She looked at me and said, "They just analyze relationships. That's all." I repeated it slowly. Analyze relationships? Like I was trying to make sure I didn't mishear the dumbest sentence of my life. She nodded. And then added, "They think you're too stable." I blinked. Too stable is now a problem? She looked away. It's complicated. That word again. Complicated. The universal translation for, I don't want to explain this. I stood up and walked around the room. I tried to make sense of it. "Okay," I said. "Let's assume this is real. Why do they care about us?" She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, "Because it started as a joke." I stopped. "A joke?" She nodded again. And then she said the sentence that hit weirdly deep. "They didn't think you would actually stay normal through everything." That's when I understood something I didn't like at all. This was never just about me and her. It was about watching what happens when someone tries to break something stable. I looked at her and said, "So what exactly are they trying to prove?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. And for the first time, she didn't have an answer. Her phone buzzed again on the table. Once. Then again. She didn't pick it up immediately. She just stared at it. Like she was scared of it. And I saw the name on the screen before she could hide it. Dasha. She finally picked it up. "Read the message." And her face changed instantly. She looked at me and said, "They want to meet again." I sighed. Of course they do. But then she added, "Not like before." I frowned. What does that mean? She swallowed. And said, "This time, they want you to come alone." And that's when her phone lit up again. New message. Preview visible from where I was standing. If he agrees, we tell him the real reason we picked him. I remember just standing there, staring at that message. If he agrees, we tell him the real reason we picked him. That word stuck in my head. Picked. Not met. Not dated. Not married. Picked. I looked at her. Picked for what? She didn't answer immediately. And that silence again, that same silence that was starting to feel like the main character in this story. Then she said, "I don't know everything." I laughed. Yeah, that's becoming a trend in this relationship. She didn't smile. Instead, she said something worse. "But I know enough to tell you, this started before we even met." That hit differently. Before we met? I leaned forward. "You're saying this whole thing was planned before I walked into a coffee shop and spilled my personality on the floor?" She nodded slightly. And for the first time, she looked genuinely conflicted. "I didn't think it was real at first either," she said. "I thought it was just talk." My phone buzzed. Unknown number. No name. Just one line. "Tell him yes or no." I looked at her. She looked at me. And then she said, "If you say yes, they will explain everything." I asked, "And if I say no?" She hesitated. Then quietly. Then they stopped talking to me, completely. That's when I realized something. This wasn't just about curiosity. This was pressure. On her. On me. On everything. I took a breath. And said, "Fine. I'll meet them." Her eyes widened a little. "Are you sure?" I nodded. "Yeah. I want to know what kind of people pick strangers like it's a menu." The next day, we got a location. No explanation. Just an address and a time. A small cafe on the edge of the city. Nothing fancy. Which made it worse. Because the more normal something looks, the less normal it usually is. We arrived separately. She got there first. I walked in a few minutes later. And instantly saw them. Same three. Dasha. Karina. Lyra. Same energy. But this time, no jokes. No small talk. Just waiting. Dasha gestured to the chair across from them. I sat down. No greetings. No smiles. Just silence for a few seconds. Then Dasha finally spoke. "So, you came." I leaned back. "Yeah. I figured I'd meet the people treating my marriage like a science experiment." Karina smirked slightly. Lyra just watched me like she was reading something invisible. Then Dasha said, "We didn't pick you randomly." I asked. "Okay. Then what? Lottery?" She shook her head. "No." She paused. And then dropped it. "We pick people who don't break." Silence. I blinked. "Don't break?" She nodded. "You didn't react the way most people would. You didn't explode. You didn't leave immediately. You didn't try to control everything." I laughed once. "So congratulations, I guess?" She didn't react to the joke. Instead, she leaned forward. "We test emotional stability under pressure. Most people fail quickly." I looked at her. And what am I supposed to say to that? Thank you? Then Lyra finally spoke. Calm voice. Almost too calm. "You're the longest result we've ever had." That line didn't feel like a compliment. It felt like a measurement. Like I wasn't a person in the conversation. I was a data point. I looked at my wife. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the table. And I asked the question I didn't want to ask. "So what happens now?" Dasha smiled slightly. For the first time. And said, "Now we decide if you continue or reset." I frowned. "Reset what?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she slid a small envelope across the table. Right in front of me. And said, "This explains everything." I looked at it. Then at them. Then at my wife. And she finally looked up at me, with a face I didn't recognize anymore. And quietly said, "Don't open it here." And that's when Dasha added, "If you open it, you won't be able to go back to how you see her." I stared at the envelope. And for some reason, my first thought wasn't fear. It was curiosity. That's the dangerous part about situations like this, they don't feel dangerous in the moment. They feel like a story you're supposed to understand. I finally asked, "What is this really?" Dasha answered immediately. "The truth." I almost laughed. "Yeah. I've heard that one before." Usually right before things get worse. No one reacted. Not even a smile. My wife finally spoke, quietly. Just open it. And that was the first time she sounded tired of everything. Not scared. Not manipulated. Just, done. I slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a printed set of pages. No dramatic symbols. No mystery codes. Just text. At the top. Project Stability Response Study. I stopped reading for a second. Then I looked up. Study? Lyra nodded. Behavioral research, she said calmly. We observe how people behave in long-term emotional bonds under external influence. I blinked. You're telling me my marriage was part of a study? Dasha leaned back. Not your marriage. Your reactions inside it. That sentence hit weirdly hard. Because suddenly, it wasn't just betrayal or manipulation. It was something colder. Structured. I kept reading. There were sections. Observations. Notes. Even categories like emotional resilience, attachment response, conflict avoidance, stability index. I closed the papers slowly. And said, so what? I was just a test subject? Karina finally spoke, quieter than before. You were the most consistent one. That wasn't supposed to feel like an insult. But it did. I looked at my wife. Did you know all of this? She didn't answer right away. Then she said, not in the beginning. I asked, when did you know? Silence again. Then. Too late. That was it. No dramatic confession. No big twist speech. Just, too late. I stood up. Put the papers back in the envelope. And said, okay. Everyone looked at me. I continued. I don't care what your project is. I don't care what you were testing. I'm done being part of it. Dasha frowned slightly. You don't understand what leaving means. I nodded. Yeah, I think I do now. I looked at my wife one last time. Not angry. Not emotional. Just clear. And said, I hope you find whatever this was supposed to give you. Then I turned and walked out. A few weeks passed. No messages. No calls. Nothing. At first it felt strange. Like silence after noise you got used to. Then it started feeling normal. Then peaceful. I moved out properly. Changed my routines. Started seeing life without constantly analyzing every message, every silence, every hidden meaning. One evening, I was sitting alone, just eating dinner, when my phone lit up. Unknown number. One message. No name. Just. The study ended. You were right. You didn't break. I stared at it for a long time. Then I deleted it. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I lost anything. I felt like I got my life back. And that should have been the end of it. But as I put my phone down, I got one more notification. From a contact I didn't recognize. No text. Just a photo. And in that photo was a new couple sitting in a cafe. Looking exactly like we did at the beginning. And under it, a single line appeared. Round 2 starts tomorrow.